أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا ونبينا محمد وآله الطاهرين. Respected elders, brothers and sisters, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. In our discussion about the rules of Hajj, we said that this is a once in a lifetime obligatory duty that we have to perform, and basically it is an invitation and a call from the Master of the universe to us, the weak creatures, the needy, the helpless creatures, to host them and to bless them and to grant them with bounties which will help them not only in this dunya, in that they will be increased in their provisions, in that their sins will be forgiven, but also in that they will be then qualified to be protected from the fire of hell and to enter into Jannah. And in order for us to qualify, God grants us the necessary health, God gives us the extra wealth, God removes the restrictions from the path. But all of this because we are spiritually alive to hear the call, we are spiritually active to want to respond to the call, and therefore undertake this journey. And we will start the spiritual journey by visiting the holy city of Medina, where the Holy Prophet migrated and settled and finally died and was buried. And also we will visit the graves of the holy Imams of the Ahlul Bayt and the pious Sahaba, and visit historical sites so that we may develop a sense of that early history of Islam, the environment in which the Holy Quran was revealed with a message for mankind throughout time. And then coming towards the time of Dhul Hijjah, we'll be preparing to start our Hajj by the small pilgrimage of Umrah Tamattu'. We will travel to Miqat from the holy city of Medina, which is Masjid Shajara. We will enter into Ihram by wearing the Ihram dress and then making the niyyah for the Ihram and then pronouncing the Talbiyah, and we are into the state of Ihram. Once we are in the state of Ihram, some things become haram, just like Salah. There are some things which break the Salah, and fasting, some things which invalidate the fast. So also in the state of Ihram for Hajj, there are 26 restrictions which apply, and we have discussed the first two groups belonging to the category of affection and affectionate behaviors, and that of beautification. So we proceed now to the next category. The English have a saying, it's a proverb. They say, little things please little minds. If you want to summarize the spirit of the restrictions belonging to category A and category B, some of these things are halal outside Ihram. Some of these things are mustahab outside Ihram. But now inside Ihram, they have been made into haram, so that perhaps our mind and souls can be trained and disciplined to forego the lesser so that they can gain the higher. The third category will be the prohibitions of clothing, and we'll discuss that in detail. But before I continue, just one reminder. When we were discussing about the restriction of beautification, we said that trimming of the hair or removal of the hair in any which way in the state of Ihram is haram. So I forgot to emphasize that hair fall, let's say you are swiping your body, let's say in the state of wudu or in the state of ghusl, you're washing, or no, you're combing. Combing is not haram in the state of Ihram in itself. Or no, you finish your bathing and you want to, or washing yourself and you want to dry yourself. Or no, you're just resting Oh no, you're just moving and suddenly you discover there's hair which has fallen off. What happens to that restriction? So the answer to that is this natural, unavoidable, or no, it's deliberate and therefore avoidable, and therefore we are responsible. Incidentally, scientists will tell you the human being loses hair all the time as part of the growth process. We may not know it, but it's happening. In fact, dozens of hairs fall off every day. And especially men, after the age of 30, they begin to lose even more hair. Many men, and some of them don't grow it again. So it's good business to start with offering solutions and lotions how to grow hair. No, it's natural, part of the hair fall. What is haram is the deliberate, voluntary removal of hair, which is avoidable. That would be haram. So let us say you don't want to make wudu or ghusl, you are bathing. When the water falls on your body as part of the contact and the gush of water on the body, hair falls, that's unavoidable. But you start scrubbing and massaging, and then that causes hair fall, that won't be allowed. Or you're finished washing and you're drying yourself and wiping yourself, that should be avoided if you know it's going to cause hair fall. Reminder number 2, before I continue. I received a comment from some people saying that, oh my God, we thought Hajj is not going to be difficult, but all these details, they are now becoming difficult. And if you remember, I warned you right in the beginning that God does not impose on us any obligatory duty beyond the capacity of the average human being. So Salah is 5 times wajib a day. It could have been more. Saum is once a month in the year, could have been more. Hajj is once in a lifetime, could have been more. The average human being's capacity is taken into consideration by God when the obligations are made. And besides, you remember the first Muslims performed their Hajj. They didn't know, an announcement was made in the 10th year of Hijrah, in the month of the Qa'dah, in the last week of the Qa'dah, the Holy Prophet ﷺ left from Medina, and people just joined him. They didn't ask, excuse me, I want to learn the Masa'il of Hajj before I join you. No, he says, you follow me, and whatever I do, you accordingly follow. So they just saw him, which places he went to, what procedures he followed, and what dress he wore, and what pronunciations he made, and what restrictions he observed, and what rituals he executed, and accordingly they followed. It's that simple. So if you have in your Hajj group or caravan a guide who is an experienced person, just follow him or her, and they will tell you all the basics. You don't need to learn all this theory. Lakini, before you take a flight, there's always the safety rules they'll tell you in case of turbulence, in case of emergency landing, you need to know how to protect yourself and save yourself. So I'm not saying your Hajj is going to have complications, but just in case, the original procedure is simple. But there may be complications that can arise either because of your ignorance, you didn't know the rule, or no, you knew the rule but somehow you forgot it, or you didn't bother to check again before you went to perform that exact rule, your niyyah went wrong, your starting and your execution and your ending was wrong. Or no, you were faced in a situation where by force you ended up doing the wrong thing. It wasn't in your choice. Then what should you do? So the procedures and the details we are mentioning is for those emergency cases also. So just bear with me, but if you don't have the patience, just like in the aeroplane, people start playing with their smart devices and start reading newspapers, they don't bother to listen to the safety instructions. You can just switch off, it's your wish. But be careful. It's risky. If you don't know the procedure, you may end up making mistakes. Some mistakes can be compensated for. Some mistakes have a heavy compensation. Some mistakes you have to fly again, my friend. You have to redo your whole of Hajj. So it's not a bad idea just to keep your ears open, pick up the main points, and if you have any clarifications you want, we can always share with you sometime. So The Quran says in ayah number 197, فَمَنْ فَرَضَ فِيهِنَّ الْحَجَّ, whosoever in the holy months of Hajj, that is Shawwal and Dhul Qa'dah and Dhul Hijjah, decides to perform Hajj and enters into Ihram, then in the state of Ihram some things become haram. فَلَا رَفَثَ, there is no affectionate behavior acceptable. وَلَا فُسُوقَ, and there is no abusive language. وَلَا جِدَالَ, and there is no oath taking which is permissible in the Ihram. These are three examples, but the Holy Prophet and the Imams of the Ahlul Bayt alayhimus salam have explained that no, the list is long. It includes 26 prohibitions, 6 under the category of affection, 7 under the category of beautification. Under clothing, there are 6 restrictions. One is to take shade from the sun during the daytime for the males. For the females, it doesn't apply. Number 2 is a head cover for the males, haram; for the females, wajib, as part of the hijab. Number 3, face cover, niqab, for example, for women, not allowed in the state of ihram. And gloves also not allowed for ladies, but allowed for males. And number 5, the 2 pieces of the unstitched dress for males, the upper shoulder cloth and the lower loin cloth. And number 6, for males, footwear which totally covers the foot, not allowed, but for females as part of hijab, wajib to cover their feet. So we'll look into the details of these restrictions. I start with the restriction about the 2 pieces of dress. Stitched dress for men is not allowed, so unstitched dress is allowed. But for females, because hijab is more important than the restriction of wearing stitched dress, it seems that the obligation of an unstitched dress for women would have contradicted and conflicted with the necessity of hijab, and hijab is more important. So the Sharia has not required unstitched dress for women. They wear their ordinary dress. The only requirement is all those materials which are haram in the state of salah, the dress for salah, also will be haram for the ihram of the women and men. So for the males, stitched dress is not allowed, meaning that a dress which has a button and a buttonhole, because all these are stitched, a neck opening, a sleeve attachment, these are all stitches, or trousers, these are all stitches. Or no, any other form of dress which is stitched basically, so a shirt or a cloak or a gown. The only exception for permission in the state of ihram for males to wear a stitched dress is that no, there's a necessity, it's an emergency has arisen. There's been a delay, for example, you can't go to Medina, you have landed in Jeddah, you can't go to Medina, you straight have to go and proceed to Mecca, and you need to wear the ihram. But let's say Jeddah is not the miqat is before Jeddah, for example. So now suddenly the caravan leader tells you, Samahani, you have to enter into ihram on board in the flight before you land in Jeddah. And you say, oh my God, but my unstitched ihram dress is in the luggage compartment. It's in my baggage, it's not with me in my hand luggage. So if you need to enter into ihram and you can't cross the miqat without ihram, as an emergency, you'll be allowed to wear the stitched dress, but it's a violation which becomes permissible for emergency reasons, but there's a penalty. And a goat has to be sacrificed. Stitched belt, whether it's a belt worn on the waist or a belt worn on the wrist, let's say for a watch, if it is stitched, no problem, that is allowed, that's an exception. Though it is makruh, the stitched belt on the waist, because it depends why you're wearing it. Sometimes it's a medical necessity, sometimes no, it's not a medical necessity. It's a social necessity. You may not be accustomed to wearing loin cloths, so you're uncomfortable that maybe it may slip away, and in order to secure the loin cloth, you want a tight belt within. No problem, it's allowed, but it's makruh. If you can learn to avoid it, the better. But you can't, you're allowed to wear it. What if the weather turns cool? Desert climates are typical. During the daytime it gets very hot, but during the nighttime the temperature drops fast. So let's say you are out in the open and the two pieces of your unstitched dress are not enough. You wish to cover yourself by a blanket, but the blanket has edges which are stitched. No problem. That is not a stitched dress with sleeves and trousers and buttons. No. The whole sheet is unstitched. It's the edges which are stitched. That degree of stitching does not matter. So I have worn the unstitched shoulder cloth on the upper part of my body. If you remember, when we enter into the state of ihram, it is wajib that the shoulder cloth should cover from the shoulder down till the waist. But it's hanging loose. Am I allowed to fasten it with a pin? With a pin, yes, but with a knot, no. The shoulder cloth. What about the loin cloth? Again, ihtiyat wajib, no knots, or you don't tie it in such a way that you make a neck sling around yourself to secure it, not allowed. Pins also not allowed. Marhumatul Akhoy says ihtiyat mustahab, not allowed. Stitched dressing is a serious violation, because a person who can avoid and does not avoid deliberate wearing of stitched dress, there's a penalty of a goat. Even, amazing, even if it was an emergency, there was no way out, you had to wear a stitched dress and enter into ihram, still there's a penalty to be paid. The emergency makes it halal, but the kafara still applies. In fact, it's so serious that if you decide to wear not one but two pieces of stitched dress, for two pieces, 2 goats, more the pieces, more the goats. It seems this unstitched dress is so important that as much as possible it should be avoided. Problems. Some people are uncomfortable because they haven't been wearing loose loin clothing, so they may be afraid of the private parts being exposed. And it's unfortunate, you see some people, they're not careful. You'll watch them, you'll see them sitting, the way they sit, everything is exposed. They don't know. So some people are shy, they say, can't we wear something stitched? Stitched underdress, no. Unstitched underdress, I don't know how you're going to wear it, but if you can think of a way, if it's unstitched, no problem, you're allowed to. Meaning that you're allowed to wear more than 2 pieces, no problem. But it should be unstitched. Can I wear a belt? Not for the purpose of securing my money, and it's important to secure money. You may get stuck anywhere. Your caravan companions or colleagues or other hujjaj or leaders may not be there. Mobile may run out of battery. Suddenly you need emergency money, and you thought that you could save yourself in any emergency situation. No, it's always safe to carry some money. If you don't have any other way to carry it but through a money belt on the waist, no problem, you're allowed to do that, even if it is stitched. However, you say, no, I don't want it for money, I can carry my money in some other way. I want it to secure my shame. I want to preserve my dignity. So no problem, you're allowed to do that for the sake of protecting the loin cloth, though it's makruh. What about the ihram itself? If not the blanket, the ihram is stitched at the edges, no problem. Edge stitching doesn't make it into a stitched dress. What if the ihram is not made up of one wide single sheet. It's two sheets which have been stitched together in between. Again, this doesn't make it into a dress because it doesn't have sleeves, for example, or buttons or trousers. It's just two sheets brought together. Better avoid it. Ihtiyat mustahab. Avoid such a ihram. But if somebody says, I've got a medical reason, I must wear a stitched undergarment because I've got a medical problem. And the fatwa is no, try as much as possible to get an unstitched piece. If you can't get it, it's totally unavoidable, then you will be allowed, it won't be sinful then to wear a stitched undergarment, but there will be a goat to pay. Gloves stitched, for men allowed, for women not allowed. The second restriction under the category of clothing in the state of ihram is footwear, which covers the total foot for men. So if you have footwear that covers the whole of the upper part of the foot, that's haram. So socks, for example, or shoes. However, covering a part of the upper part of the foot, no problem. That's allowed. So slippers which have straps, no problem. Sandals which have straps, no problem. What if my ihram is not the wajib ihram from the waist till the knee or just below the knee? My ihram is a long flowing ihram which reaches till the ankle, mustahab. So then now when I sit, I can cover my feet. But you're telling me footwear is not allowed in the state of ihram. No, this is not, ihram is not designed to be worn on the feet as something stitched so that it covers the feet. This is allowed, no problem. The exception, of course, the foot covering is for women. For women, the restriction that it is haram to cover your feet doesn't apply. In fact, it's the opposite. If they are with women, no problem, they can keep their feet open. But if they are amongst men, it is wajib on them to cover their feet as part of the hijab. The penalty is if somebody wears socks and therefore has covered the whole of the upper part of the foot, ihtiyat wajib, you have to pay a goat. What if somebody wears stitched slippers or shoes? No problem. If you didn't have strapped slippers, make sure you cut open a certain part on the upper part of the foot in the shoe and you can wear that, no problem. So if you only expose the tip of the toes by the shoes or the sandals, the whole of the upper part of the foot is covered by your footwear, that's haram, no, not allowed. What if socks, I wear socks, but I cut open a certain portion on the upper part of the socks? The fatwa is no, better avoid. It's allowed, but better avoid. Ihtiyat mustahab. The third restriction for clothing in the state of ihram is for men again. Covering the head with a headdress. For women, headdress is wajib. Ihram doesn't make it haram. Head cover, if you remember, in some cultures, people wear a headdress as part of protection from the weather, extreme cold, extreme hot, or part of presentability, some headwear, or no, it signifies their status in society. So headdress has got reasons. In the state of ihram, it is haram for men. When you say head cover, what do you mean? The head could be designated to be the upper part of the body, which has the eyes and the nose and the mouth and the ears. So I'm not supposed to cover the whole of this portion or which specific portion. No, the head which is haram to be covered in the state of ihram is only the upper part of the body where the hair grows, and also where the ears are located. So ear covering not allowed in the state of ihram. Can't wear mufflers, can't wear these big earphones, can't use a mobile phone which covers, because you're not allowed to cover even for the whole area of the head or part of the area, the whole of the ear or part of the ear. You're not allowed to cover. Some of the time or all the time, haram. Either by covering with a cloth or a dress, haram, or covering, let's say you decided to carry your luggage on your head, not allowed in the state of ihram, ihtiyat wajib. But of course you can use your hand to cover your head, that is permissible. The only exception is sick people who need to wear a headband that may cover their hair. Or no, these water providers, water carriers, they need to wear the water bag in such a way that the strap may be covering their head. That's an exception that's mentioned in the hadith, which is allowed. This is a serious violation. Somebody covers their head, there's a goat to be paid. Question. Why so much restriction? Unstitched dress, don't cover your hair, don't cover your feet. Why so much restriction? I don't know, but maybe the requirement they should be unstitched means that wear the simplest. Remove all these decorations and projections of power and position and distinction in society and class and profession. Be as simple as possible. And the simplest is 2 pieces unstitched. Nothing simpler than that. And basically the function is cover yourself, what is wajib to be covered, the shameful parts. You're not here to impress, because God knows your inside more than you do. Who are you trying to impress? And the requirement that the dress should be white, not wajib, mustahab. And make sure that just like salah, don't make it najis. Even 1 drop of blood, maybe in salah allowed, but not in ihram, haram. So maintain a state of purity, maintain a state of simplicity, and maintain a state of ibadah, spirituality, because the dress should be just like the dress of salah. And if you remember that hadith of Shibli, Shibli, did you go to the miqat? Did you take off your stitched dressing? Did you make the niyyah at that time that you are removing from yourself nifaq and riya and shubha? This desire to impress others, we need to overcome that in the state of ihram. Kwanini, don't be bothered about these things now. This is a journey you're preparing to go and meet your Lord. He's not going to ask you what dress you wore. He's going to ask you, what did you do? The ayah in Surah Mulk, Allah says, God is the one who created man so that He may test him. لِيَبْلُوَكُمْ أَيُّكُمْ أَحْسَنُ عَمَلًا. You're coming to meet me. The first question I'm going to ask you, I sent you to the dunya as a test to see who amongst you did the best. Not did the most or was the richest. No. Don't show me your rich dresses here. No. Show me what is the best you did. And the best, according to the hadith, is did you have the right faith, the true faith, the sincere faith, the trust in God, the submission to God, the hope in God, the fear of God, the respect and the reverence of God's creation. Did you have these basic qualities? Everything in your life changes. You don't have this, you may have everything in life, but you're a loser. So ihram, perhaps the dress, is to impress upon us this important journey that we make to meet our Lord. Head cover has some problems, as I said, the mobile phone, because it's haram to cover even part of the head, and the head in this mas'ala includes the ear. So beware, don't use the mobile phone by covering your ear. Keep it at a distance on speaker phone, for example. Or no, bring only the speaker near your ear. Or no, use an earphone which is so tiny, it just sits in the ear canal, doesn't cover the outer ear pinna. So you're telling us to cover our head is not allowed, but maybe I want to rest my head on the seat or on the pillow. No problem. That degree of covering is allowed. The seat will not be considered as your head cover. What about sleeping? Well, if you happen to be sleeping and you cover yourself, it happened accidentally, you didn't realize it, immediately when you wake up, remove the cover from your head. You took the sheet and covered yourself. No, haram, sleep is not an exception. I want to go for a shower and I want to open the shower to its full force. So much is going to cover my head instantly. No, that is not considered as a head cover. No problem, you're allowed to do that. I finished my shower, I've come out. I feel fresh now. I want to dry my head. Am I allowed to use a towel to wipe? No. No. You're not allowed to cover your head. Well, if you're not going to allow me to dry my head, what if I tell you I need to pray salah? And for salah I need to make wudu. I just went for a shower. I didn't go for ghusl. I want to make wudu. And with a wet head, how am I going to make my masah? Oh, so this is an emergency. The solution to that is minimum portion required of the head to be dry for the purpose of masah is 1 finger length and 1 finger breadth. Mustahab 3 finger lengths and 3 finger breadths. Minimum is 1. So that portion you're allowed to dry. And besides, if you can use your hand to dry, so dry your hand first and then dry your head. If you can't do that, then use a towel as a necessity. What about a facial mask which has a strap on the head? No problem, allowed. What if a person covers the head not once but several times during the process of ihram? No problem, there is only one penalty for the whole of the ihram of Umrah Tamattu'. And then again, if you make the mistake in Hajj Tamattu' ihram, there will be another goat for that violation. A fourth restriction in the state of ihram for men, not for women, is to take shade. So basically a sunshade from above during the daytime and when they're traveling, and only for men but not for women, and that also voluntarily, not unavoidably. So if it is not a sunshade, let's say it is nighttime, there is no sun, or it is not traveling during the daytime, it is traveling during the nighttime, or no, it's not traveling, you've stopped somewhere, no problem, you're allowed to take shade. Or no, it's not voluntarily, I'm not the one carrying an umbrella. I found this tall building, so instead of walking on the other side where there's sun, I'm walking on this side where there's a shade. No problem, I didn't make this building. I'm allowed to walk under the shade of a structure, but I'm not allowed to carry something in my hands which is mobile, which is voluntary, which is by choice, to cover myself. So 3 basic questions we need to answer. I just need to remind you, practically what's going to happen is we will be moving from the building in Medina to go to the miqat around the Asr time. So we'll arrive there around Maghrib time, we'll enter into Ihram after Salat al-Maghrib at the miqat. So our traveling will be during the night time. We'll arrive in Mecca inshallah before Fajr. So you have an option of going for tawaf before Fajr and sunrise, in which case these rules will not apply. Alternatively, there may be a delay, normally it's not there, in arrival in Mecca, or no, you take a rest a few hours and you go to the tawaf from the building in Mecca to Masjid al-Haram after sunrise, in which case then these rules will apply in Umrah Tamattu'. But the most important application of these rules of sunshade are during the Hajj Tamattu Ihram, because that involves daytime staying and traveling. So a quick reminder, we need to know which type of shades are allowed, the fixed versus the mobile shades. And shade from what? Sun or even the other elements of nature like wind and dust. And the shade, coming under shade is haram during traveling, but not during the time when you have stopped. So, a shade can be a fixed shade, for example, a tree or a tunnel or a wall or a hill or a building. Or it can be a mobile shade, and this mobile shade can be something which is in your hands above you, like the umbrella, or the roof of a car, or the roof of a plane, in case you wish to enter into ihram in a plane. Or no, the mobile shade above you is not above you, but it's in front of you, or on the sides, or behind you, but nevertheless it's giving you a shade. So the fixed shades are allowed, no problem. It's not under my control. But the mobile shades, if they're above me, no, not allowed. So the umbrella, for example, or the roof of a car. So you have to travel in an open roof car or bus. What about a mobile shade which is not above but from my front or from my side or from my behind? So let's say I have a friend who is double my size, and I happen to position myself in such a way that the sun falls on him and not on me. No problem. That's allowed. However, this is if you are a pedestrian. But if you are a passenger sitting on the bus and you say, I'm going to raise the window so it becomes a side shade for me, no, that is not allowed. However, if you position yourself in the bus as a passenger in such a way that your chest is exposed to the sun and your head is exposed to the sun, yes, waist down, you're covered by the sides of the bus, that is allowed. I mean, you can't be sitting in a bus in such a way that the whole of your body is exposed. So that much portion obviously can be allowed. What if I wish to protect myself from the sun? I create my own sunscreen, my hand sunscreen, no problem, that is allowed. Sunshade is haram for men. From what? From the sun, definitely it's haram. From the rain, yes, it's haram, whether it's rain during the daytime or rain during the nighttime. What about taking a shade and protection from the wind? You're traveling in a bus, there's a strong wind blowing if you kept the window open. Or no, it's cold and you need to, but bearable cold, not unbearable cold. Bearable cold. Or no, bearable heat. I want to sit in an air-conditioned bus. I don't want the discomfort of the heat. According to Hazrat Ayatollah Sistani, may Allah protect our Maraji, this type of shade also allowed. That means the one which is not from the sun and not from the rain, but it is from the wind and the cold and the heat. But Marhum Ayatollah Khoi, rahmatullah alayhi, says no, even that type of shade is not allowed. Just like shade from the sun not allowed, shade from the heat and cold also not allowed. You must expose yourself to the natural world. Nighttime shade. Hazrat Ayatollah Sistani says allowed. You can travel under a roof of a car or a bus up till just before sunrise. Marhum Ayatollah Khoi says no. You're not allowed to take shade from the sun during the daytime. You're not allowed to take shade in the nighttime from the wind and the heat and the cold. Even nighttime you must expose yourself. Haram to travel under shade. What if you say, well, there are heavy clouds and the sun is blocked? No problem. That is not under your control. You're allowed to walk under the clouds. In fact, if you are a person who is so blessed and close to God, maybe you can pray and a cloud will be sent for you, no problem. Or maybe you ask somebody to pray for you. Musa alayhi salam, Bani Israel went to Musa It's terribly hot in this desert. We've escaped Fir'aun. Now there's another trouble here. Musa prays and a cloud comes and gives them air conditioning. Yeah, so you can pray to someone who is close to God, and maybe you'll get a cloud cover. Shade not allowed during the time of traveling. However, when you come to a stop, either middle of the way or no, you've reached your destination. You've reached Makkah now. Makkah is my destination. I'm moving around Makkah. I'm a traveler? No, I'm in my destination. I'm no longer a traveler. So in destination, allowed to take shade. On the way you stop. To rest, let's say, or to visit the washroom or whatever, allowed to take shade at that time because you're not traveling at that, not moving. However, there's one exception. When you arrive in the city of Makkah before Fajr, and you have settled down in your building, and now in the state of Ihram you wish to go for the next wajib act, which is the tawaf. From the building to the Masjid al-Haram, are you allowed to take shade or not? Hazrat al-Sistani says, no, ihtiyat wajib, you are not allowed to take shade from the building, during the daytime that is, not nighttime he allows. From the building after sunrise to Masjid al-Haram. This is a serious violation. If somebody breaks this restriction, then there is a penalty, and the penalty is one goat for the whole ihram. So if you have taken shade even twice, but there's only one goat for this whole ihram of Umrah Tamattu'. If you take another shade in the ihram of Hajj Tamattu', another goat will apply. But unlike clothes, 2 pieces of clothes, 2 goats. Here, 2 times shade, only 1 goat. Mustahab, if you can, you took shade for not 1 day in ihram, but 2 days in the ihram of Hajj Tamattu', for example. Or no, you stayed longer in the state of ihram in Umrah Tamattu'. So for 2 days you were in ihram, and twice you took a shade on 2 days. So better to pay 2 goats for every day. So I want to avoid taking shade. So now you're telling me I need to get an open car, but it's not easy to get an open car without a roof. No, sorry, that's no excuse. Not easy. Well, who said Hajj was easy? Go and look for an appropriate. Oh, but it's expensive. Well, pay extra expenses. This is part of your wajib Hajj, part of your wajib expenses. Oh no, it's exorbitantly expensive. I've budgeted $500 for my shopping, and they're asking for $100 for this bus and $100 for that other bus. You're telling me 40% of my budget is knocked off. No, if the price is not extremely exorbitant, you can pray, you can pay, and you must pay. Alright, so I didn't know the rules, so I've entered into the bus now and I'm under the shade and it's so cool here, it's air conditioned. I've already broken the rule, I'll pay a goat now. Can I continue to stay in the bus? No, haram, haram. Immediately you realize you've forgotten the rule, jump off the bus. The more you stay, the more haram it is. And paying a goat doesn't make it halal. Every moment to do the haram in ihram is haram. Oh, but I can pay not only 1 goat, I'll pay 2 goats. No, Allah doesn't want the goat from you. Allah wants the burning in the sun from you. What if I want to take rest of on my head? You said no shade. No, headrest is not considered as a shade. What about the shade of fellow passengers? We said that is allowed. So again, in the bus, I sit in a position near a big fellow who acts as my screen and protects me from the sun. No problem, you're allowed to do that. What if it rains? You said shade from the sun not allowed, shade from the rains not allowed. When we started moving in the bus, there was no rain. From the miqat, we are moving, going towards Makkah. On the way, rains began. No. You must tell the driver, Samahani, stop. We can't move in the state of ihram under rain. The driver says, Samahani, I can't stop for you. Or these other Hujjaj, they don't mind. He said, but yeah, I don't care about the other Hujjaj, but I mind because I'm going to be asked by God. He says, sorry, I can't stop for you. So then you say, sorry, then allow me to get off the bus, I'll take another means of transport. If you can do that, you must do it. This is wajib. It's haram to continue traveling. You must do everything possible to avoid the shade during rain. Well, the driver says, listen, I'm very considerate, I'm ready. Of course, if you also consider, give me some riyals, no problem, I'll stop for you. But the problem is the police, they won't allow me to stop on the way. So, you're ready to pay bakshish to the driver. He is ready to take the bakshish, but the police is not allowing him to stop. So now it becomes a situation which is unavoidable. No problem. Then you're allowed to continue to travel and take shade. Though it's raining, but pay a goat. It's serious, taking shade when it's haram. Question. Why is it so strict, this rule about taking shade? Answer, the riwayah says, why do you want to take, somebody came to the Imam alayhi salam, I feel a bit uncomfortable in the sun, I don't mind paying a kafara. Imam says, no, it's not a question of uncomfortable. You should feel uncomfortable. Yes, medical reason is something else. Somebody who's got a sensitive skin, no, that's an exception. You're feeling uncomfortable? Yes, you must. You must face the sun. In fact, you must burn by the sun in order to avoid to get you burnt by your sins. The riwayah says, أَمَا عَلِمْتَ أَنَّ الشَّمْسَ تَغْرُبْ بِذُنُوبِ الْمُجْرِمِينَ. The sun sets with your sins. There's a sin set by the sunset, but you must burn before the sunset. So, a quick reminder, if you remember the restrictions by looking and touching, and the perfumes and the nail trimming and hair cutting and the stitched clothing and the foot cover and the head cover and the shade, all of them are serious violations. If somebody does it purposely, not only are they sinful, but they must also pay kafara. Underclothing is the covering of the ladies also. So just bear with me, I just quickly remind our sisters about this rule. It is haram in the state of ihram for a woman to cover her face, the whole of her face or part of her face, ihtiyat wajib. And it doesn't matter how you cover, whether it's through a fancy fan or a niqab or a burqa, doesn't matter. Covering the face, haram in the state of ihram for a woman. What if she decides to wear these huge goggles that cover half the face? No, not allowed. So then what about using a tissue or a handkerchief to swipe? So you're making this gentle skin which is always applied with facial cream to keep it soft and supple. Now you want it to be burnt by the skin. She's sweating now. So now she should not even swipe it with tissue and handkerchief. No, that quick swipe is not allowed, basically. What about salah? If you say that face cover is not allowed in ihram, but remember for salah, in order to make sure that you have done the wajib cover of the head, you have to slightly lower the head scarf below the hairline to make sure. You know, in wudu, you're supposed to wash from the elbow, tip of the elbow till the fingertip. To make sure you've covered the tip of the elbow, start a little above the elbow. Likewise, for the woman in the state of ihram, she's supposed to keep her face open, so she brings her headdress to the hairline, but not showing the hair, of course. But for salah, she must make sure the head is covered totally. She lowers the headdress a little for the salah. The moment the salah is over, she raises it again back to the headline to make sure the whole of the face, which is haram to cover, is uncovered. But there's a problem. Problem is sometimes you hear these horror stories of some people who pretend to be Muslims and Hajjis, and who in the crowd begin to do shameful things to our sisters. So if the woman is afraid of lustful look or lustful behavior from the men, then as an exception, yes, she's allowed to cover her face. But even then, if she's allowed to cover her face, she should do that with a loosely hanging, not a sticking, a loosely hanging overdress, headdress. Serious violation. If a woman deliberately, without any genuine excuse, covers her face in the state of ihram, a goat has to be paid. Ihtiyat wajib according to Marhum Ayatollah Khoi, ihtiyat mustahab according to Hazrat Ayatollah Sistani. So a woman wishes to keep her face open, but then, and not cover it because this is haram, but then she needs to change, she needs to remove her headdress, and in the process of removing the headdress, the face is temporarily covered. So if there's no other way out, and you must remove the headdress by covering the face, that is no problem, that's unavoidable. Unless you have a headdress which has a zip, you open the zip and the headdress comes off. I don't know, for the sake of Hajj. You can make a good business. I open a business of supplying special ihram suitable dresses. For those men who are worried about belts, keep a strong, nice, tightly fitting waistline, get some good material. How many hujjaj you have? Make good business, for example. What if a woman wants to sleep and she turns her face on the right or on the left, so part of her face is covered during sleep and covered by the pillow? No problem. Sleep is something which is natural. Allah has kept nighttime for rest. In fact, she can even bury her face into the pillow. What if she wishes to clear her nose and the handkerchief covers her face? No problem. What if she wishes to wear a mask because it is dusty or it's dirty or afraid of infections? No, ihtiyat wajib, not allowed. Unless medically it's necessary, the doctor has prescribed it. But because it's ihtiyat, you can refer to the next best mujtahid who may allow. What about drying a wet face with a towel? Marhum Ayatollah Khoi says no. Hazrat Ayatollah Sistani says ihtiyat wajib, no, you cannot. So just like for men, you can't wipe your head, wet head, with a towel, so also because you're going to cover your head. So also for women to keep, for men the ihram is the head, for women the ihram is the face. So also therefore they cannot wipe with a towel the face. Gloves allowed for males, not allowed for females. Females are allowed to wear any stitched clothing. However, the exception is gloves. The fatwa is clear. Almost all the mujtahids and all the mazhabs make it haram. It's serious because a violation of this rule means there is a goat to be paid. And besides, gloves in the past history were worn for different purposes, the battle and the beauty and to reflect one's position in society, or no, sometimes it was just for fashion. Perhaps these are the reasons the wearing of gloves for women is not allowed in the state of ihram. Otherwise, it's part of hijab. Like when you some mujtahids, it's wajib for them to wear gloves. Question. But a woman's face is sensitive and delicate, and you are saying that she must expose it, it's wajib and it's haram to cover. Same reason given for the shade for men is given for the face of the women. The woman is told, expose your face, let the light complexion of the skin be burnt and darkened by the sun. With the sunset, there will be the sunset. The riwayah says that the Imam alayhi salam says, Ahrimi, the woman should enter into ihram. Wasfari, open your face. وَارْخِي ثَوْبَكِ مِنْ فَوْقَ رَأْسِكِ. And then lift your headdress till your headline to expose the face. قَنِينِي فَإِنَّكِ إِن تَنَقَّبْتِ. If you wear the niqab and cover your face, لَمْ يَتَغَيَّرْ لَوْنُكِ. Your complexion will not darken. You must burn in the state of ihram. For the woman, she should burn more, but hijab is more wajib, and therefore the hands can be exposed, the face can be exposed. Category 4 of the restrictions in the state of ihram, I label it as the defense activities. So removal of the tooth, removal of blood, carrying weapons and arms, hurting insects, for example, or animals, or hunting animals. All of these are haram. These are aggressive or defensive activities. So, in the state of ihram, for a muhrim to wear arms which are offensive, not defensive. Defensive is definitely allowed. Which is needless, you don't need to carry it, is haram. So to carry or to wear on your belt or on your shoulder these offensive weapons, not allowed. But the arms which are not allowed are the offensive, but defensive are allowed. Because let's say you will face situations where there was one of the years when Al-Qaeda was back in Saudi, and the government itself was announcing that these are the wanted faces and we're looking for these suspects. If you have any information, inform us. During the Hajj time, they were announcing one of the past years. So no, if there's an exceptional situation where you need to protect yourself, if the law of the land allows, not that you start wearing arms and you are suspected as a terrorist. If it's necessary and it's allowed and they don't provide the necessary security and protection, then you will be allowed to wear arms in the state of ihram. Penalty, this is serious. If a person without any need wears the arms and weapons, there is a goat as a penalty. Removal of blood in the state of ihram, not allowed from oneself, but you can remove it from somebody else. And that also, if it's not necessary, that's haram. So let's say somebody has got an itch and begins to scratch and scratch and scratch till it causes bleeding. Haram. Somebody has got a toothache, instead of taking painkillers till the ihram is over, he decides to go for tooth extraction, which will cause bleeding. Or no, he decides to do hijama. Hijama is mustahab. It's a good act. The Prophet used to do it. Sallallahu alayhi wa alayhi. Somebody arrives in Makkah, he's excited. He wants to do hijama for health reasons. No, not allowed. Blood donation, voluntary, not emergency, obviously. Or injecting oneself, which will definitely cause some bleeding. Even a drop will not be allowed. However, removal of blood from self, not allowed. Removal of blood from another person, allowed. So a doctor or a nurse can inject somebody else in the state of ihram. What if the other person, the patient, is in the state of ihram? Then no. Ihtiyat mustahab, but not wajib, avoid. What about toothbrushing? If it causes bleeding from the teeth. Toothbrushing in itself, mustahab. Min sunanil mursalin is siwak. Lakini, there are some people who know that if they brush their teeth, they'll bleed. Hazrat Ayatollah Khoi Marhum says no. If you know you're going to bleed, by a mustahab act of siwak, don't do that. Hazrat Ayatollah Sistani says no. Siwak is mustahab. Just like ghusl, even if you know by wudu and ghusl hair is going to fall off, no problem, you're allowed to do ghusl and wudu. Likewise here, he says it's sunnah, you're allowed to do it even if it causes bleeding. Bloodletting and blood removal not allowed under ordinary conditions. Medical necessity, no problem. Person is diabetic, he needs his insulin injection, he's infected, the doctor has prescribed injections, they must take a regular 6-hourly, 8-hourly injections and it will cause bleeding, no problem. That is an exception allowed. Penalty, no penalty. Mustahab, but not wajib to pay a goat. Tooth removal. Depends, will tooth removal cause bleeding or no bleeding? I don't know, do we have bloodless tooth extraction or not? Maybe sometimes the tooth is so loose, there is no deep, strong connection with an underlying blood vessel. Gently you can remove it, it won't cause bleeding, no problem. However, if the tooth removal, it's painful, tooth removal is going to cause bleeding, Marhumatullah Khoy says no, haram to do so, unless obviously it's a medical necessity, it's unbearable. Hazrat Ali Sistani says no problem, this type of bleeding allowed. What about the dentist? Is he allowed to do it? Oh yes, dentist in the state of ihram can remove the tooth of another person, even if that person will bleed in the state of ihram. Any penalty for tooth removal when it causes bleeding? No. Killing insects, not harmful, harmless insects or small animals in the state of ihram, not allowed. I normally don't discuss this here in the ihram of Umrah Tamattu because we will not face them. We will be in a air conditioned, we will be traveling from the building to the miqat, from the miqat onto the bus, from the bus to the building in Makkah, from Makkah to Masjid al-Haram. Where are you going to meet these insects? Yes, in the ihram of Hajj Tamattu, you will be told, sorry, get off the bus, enter the tent in the desert, in Arafah. No, in Muzdalifah, sorry, no tent, you're out in the open by yourself with all the insects or all the small animals who may be there. And then yes, when you come to Mina again you're exposed, there's just a tent out there. So yes, the ihram of Hajj Tamattu, there's exposure is there. Lakini, in the ihram of Umrah Tamattu, it depends. There is going to be a stop at night between the miqat and Makkah. Makkah is more than 400 kilometers away. In between there's going to be a stop out in the desert. There'll be a restaurant, a washroom. Maybe there could be mosquitoes out there. So you need to know the rule. The details, of course, later on. So ihtiyat wajib. In the state of ihram, you're not allowed to kill insects if they're harmless insects. So let's say there's an ant who is bothering you in the state of ihram. You're not allowed to kill it, but you're allowed to gently pick it up and transfer it away without harming this harmless insect. However, if there is a fly which you fear will be disease carrying, mosquito you fear will be disease carrying, then yes, you're allowed to kill because these are potentially harmful insects. Provided there's no alternative protection possible, so you can just swipe it away or push it away, not necessarily killing it. If there are ants around your bedding, this is again for Arafah, I'll skip it for the moment. What about using an insect spray? No problem, so long as it doesn't kill, not the harmful, the harmless insects you're allowed to. But if it's going to kill the harmful insects, no problem, allowed. We'll discuss this later on. This is a beautiful creation of God, and we shouldn't jump at killing it all the time, but we'll discuss the details later on. So finally, conclusion, we stop here. There's no penalty for most of these violations and restrictions of the defense behavior. Only one, carrying arms and weapons needlessly, has got a penalty of a goat. Question, why the restrictions of these particular activities? In the Quran, in Surah Ma'idah, ayah 95, Allah says, Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu, or those who believe that there is a God, and this is a powerful God, all-knowing God, all-loving God, and therefore will legislate everything which is to your benefit. La taqtulu as-sayda wa antum haram. When you're in the state of ihram, you're not allowed to hunt or to hurt or to carry out any of these other activities. So no hunting and no hurting and not even holding. A holding of an animal of prey, not allowed in the state of ihram. Leave it, let it be free. And not to eat hunted animals. Irrespective whether you are already inside the haram, Masjid Tan'im onwards, or you're still in the hill between the miqat and Masjid Tan'im, wherever you are, no hunting in the state of ihram. Kwanini, the ayah says that Allah wants to test you. This is halal outside ihram. Inside ihram, temporarily haram as a test. Test of what? To see whether you respect God or not, His laws. So Allah, in order to test, will send an animal to you to see whether you get the impulse to shoot and to hunt and to catch and to hold or to want to eat. So it's a test for the respect of God's laws. Oh, incidentally, this ayah is talking about hunting, but the rule applies to everything. So, in the state of ihram, I'm not supposed to engage in affectionate behavior even with my legal spouse or an illegal partner. Oh, if Allah can send an animal and a bird to test my hunting impulses, Allah can also send a woman or a man to test my sexual impulses, for example. Or no, beautification not allowed. I'm not going to do anything to beautify myself. So you sit in the bus, and in front of the bus there's a mirror for you. You say, I'm not going to look. I'm not going to look. I'm not going to look. That's a test. It can happen anywhere, any of these restrictions. And we can be tested to see whether we have the power to control our impulses or not. Finally, the final category, I call it the ethical. لا رفث ولا فسوق ولا جدال في الحج. No quarreling and no lying allowed in Hajj, in the ihram. What is fusuq, which is not allowed? The mujtahid say to speak lies, not allowed to abuse another person, not allowed to boast with pride and arrogance, not allowed. Oh, incidentally, these are all haram before ihram, doubly haram inside ihram. However, boasting when you talk about your wealth or your family background or your social status, to talk about yourself, that, and maybe the other person interprets it as boasting, that's allowed. What is not allowed is to degrade and humiliate and show your superiority and the other person's inferiority. That is haram, doubly haram in the state of ihram. Penalty, make istighfar. Mustahab, if you can give a cow. Final item which is haram in the state of ihram is jidal, disputing, arguing, especially the use of God's name in your argument and your defense. I can prove to you that I am right. Wallahi. By God, it doesn't matter if it's not in Arabic. You can even use other languages. But if you use God's name to take an oath, haram. Unless you didn't mean to take an oath when you took God's name, then there's no kafara. Or no, you took God's name, but you meant to prove something or to refute something, then kafara applies. And then there is a goat. Or if you took a false oath in God's name in the state of ihram, if you took that false oath in God's name once, a goat, twice a cow, 3 times a camel as a punishment. Again, why is it that jidal and fusuq not allowed in the state of ihram? Basically, argumentation and disputations, they usually cause unnecessary ill feelings between the believers, so they should be better avoided. I stop here with the restrictions. We've finished all of them. Now we are approaching the Haram. After the Haram, we will reach Mecca. After Mecca, we have to proceed for Tawaf. Inshallah, we'll discuss that in the next session. If there are any questions or clarifications, please. Are you allowed to wear tinted glasses which change color in sunlight? If it's not decorative, no problem. Can I use orange sweets or mint sweets as I have a low sugar problem? Mint is not a fragrance. It's not a perfume. Yes, it may have a strong smell or a good smell. So you can close your nose and enjoy your mint. Do we have to use unscented toothpaste? Again, if the paste has mint in it, close your nose and brush your teeth. If you can find ordinary paste which has no flavor, you must do so. Or no, use salt. Or no, once you're there, find a miswak, the wooden miswak, and use a miswak instead. Are we allowed to use unscented deos? Yes. So long as it's unscented, no problem. Yes, please. Yes. That's for women. For men, you're allowed to cover your face. And even for women, for that necessity of coughing, no problem, you're allowed to cover your face. Yes, please. Better, not wajib, better that the kafara of the violations of the ihram of Umrah Tamattu should be paid in Mecca, and the violations of the restrictions of ihram of Hajj Tamattu should be paid in Mina. But if a person, if they don't pay it there, rightly or wrongly, then they're allowed to pay it in their homeland, no problem. Unlike the sacrifice of the animal, it must be done on the day of Eid in Mina for Hajj Tamattu. But this sacrifice, if you don't do it in Mecca or Mina, you can do it in your home, no problem. The caravan and the Hajj groups definitely try to obtain an open roof bus. Yes, inshallah. So let's pray to Allah for tawfiq that this is a journey we are going to undertake in the state of ihram, which will be the simplest dress which we can ever wear, so that we abandon everything of the dunya and our focus should be God and God alone. And therefore even those things which are haram we avoid in ihram more so, but those things which are halal or even mustahab as a discipline from God, to please God, to avoid the lower pleasures so that we can get the higher pleasures, inshallah we undertake this journey. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.